ASMR Money Mentor. Happy New Year, by the way. Can you believe it? It's 2025. Isn't it kind of silly when people say things like that? Like, can you believe it? It's another year. As if time just somehow stops. It never stops. Time just keeps going by. And unfortunately, most people, as you know, get poorer every single year. Unfortunately, they don't get richer every single year. Which, as you know, I think is a very sad thing. Very sad indeed. Especially for young people. To go through your life spending all of your money and not preparing for the future is a travesty, unfortunately. So, that is the reason why I came up with 3 ideas for the new year for you to think about if you have not implemented some of these ideas. Now, of course, I don't want you to think this is like a New Year's resolution, okay? It's definitely not like that. Now, it's not like joining a gym membership, which, by the way, I have done. I joined LA Fitness. I used to be a member there many years ago, and then I decided to stop the membership. You know why? Because I wasn't going. Most people continue their membership when they don't go, but I really couldn't justify paying the money every single month and only going to the gym twice in the month. Now, I was still exercising. You guys know I do my exercises in my condo. Do you remember I talked about that before? I call them doing my pennies because I take 5 pennies out of my desk drawer and I put them on the desk. And when I'm working from home, I get up and I do my different sets of exercises like lunges, air squats, push-ups, leg extensions, bicep curls, tricep extensions, and I do a complete set. So I've still been working out. I'm still walking. I still swim in my pool right here in my condo community, which you probably saw in a video. I shared everybody like what my condo community looks like. But you know, years ago I quit the gym because in my brain, again, I could not justify the expense because, you know what? As we get older, at least my experience has been, I started working more hours because, well, for one thing, when you work from home, most people work more hours. And I know that sounds like a cop-out, but it's true. What's really funny is that you think that people would be, you know, not working as much, but no. You actually get up earlier, you sign in, you do things. It's like you're always thinking about work. Luckily, I don't have to think about that much anymore coming up. But I wanted to tell you I've joined the gym and I'm really looking forward to it because, you know what? Fitness is now going to become my full-time job, if that makes sense. Where before I was making sure that my employer had the best of me, now I'm going to have the best of myself. And that is one of the benefits, I think, of retirement, especially retiring early. So you still have plenty of years to be active. And so that then again is a New Year's resolution, but I don't want you to think of these 3 things that I've come up with today as resolutions at all. I want you to think of these as a potential new way of thinking, a new way of life, a new financial lifestyle, if you will. Don't think of them as short-term behaviors. Think of these as things you can do to position yourself for financial success in the future. So let's start with number 1, obviously, which is in the new year, if you have debt, it's best to pay down the debt. Of course, we know these things. And maybe create a budget as well for those of you that have not created a budget at this point. Don't look away. I know there's some of you that are listening that are saying, you know what, Evan, I have not created my budget. So if that's you right now, take the time this week to think about your budget. It's very simple. Watch some of my videos from the past, the money management, the money mapping. Just put your expenses on a spreadsheet. Make sure that it all equals to one column where you have your out money and you have your in money. And you need to see, are you thriving, which means you have money to go into savings or investing, or are you just surviving, which is okay as well. For many of you, I was there for 11 years, as you know. So if you have not created a budget, I would encourage you to do so. I also just want to take a moment and thank the person that had that comment on my channel where I did the role play recently of, you know, me talking to you about creating a budget and money mapping. And he had some really good suggestions about different line items that you could create in your budget for things like childcare, gifts, you know, all sorts of things. You could really make it very granular if you choose to do so. Now, one of the reasons why in the role play I did not include things such as that is because I asked the person, you know, what are the things that you spend money on? And I left it up to that person to take the money that they're paying themselves, which was the $600 per month, and live within the means of those $600. So somehow you have to make that work, and somehow you have to create accountability for yourself to make sure that that happens. But I do appreciate that that person suggested other line items. In fact, when I was a guest on the Susie Orman Show in 2012, I still have the spreadsheet that they gave me where it listed out everything, and I mean everything. It's a real interesting spreadsheet, line item by line item by line item, for everything that a person could ever spend money on. And so for some people, maybe that's true. Maybe you have to create your budget and make sure that you itemize every single line item, or you create a line item, I should say, for every single expense that you have. It might be necessary. Now, one thing I have done through the years is, let's say, for example, that $600, I create a separate tab on my spreadsheet, and I call it Fun and Other, and let's say it was the $7,200 a year. I would then itemize per perhaps, or earmark certain dollar amounts for things I was going to do in the future. For example, like Amazon Prime, what does it cost? $150 a year or something like that. So I would put down the $720, but then line items and deduct it as a future expense in the year. I didn't know when I would spend it. Another thing might be, Christmas gifts, etc., that you can earmark from the $7,200. Then you can get a better idea of how much you could pay yourself above and beyond the line items that you take off from the top of this subset. So that may work for you as well. But however you choose to do your budget, it's very important to not spend more than what you have allocated. So it's sometimes better to go above than not have enough money at the end of the year. And remember, because it's a zero-based budget, then you can't go wrong. You can borrow from other buckets, but you can't spend more than what you told yourself you would spend on the spreadsheet. So number one, for those of you that need some motivation in 2025, create a budget and reduce debt as well. A lot of times on my channel, you guys may have noticed I don't talk a lot about debt reduction, obviously because it's not part of my path, and I teach from what I know. I do teach and I tell you things that I did wrong, that I had debt. I also say that I had a bankruptcy. So for debt elimination techniques, you can go to places like Dave Ramsey and other people that have really great plans for reducing debt. So I would just say in 2025, if you do have debt, that you take money, obviously, and you start paying that debt down higher than the min paid dues, so that you can get out of debt faster than if you had just paid the min paid dues. Alright, so number one, reduce debt and create a budget. Number two, I'm going to go with the Roth IRA for number two. You guys hear me talk a lot about a Roth IRA on my channel, and seriously, for young people, it is such an amazing thing. Let me just talk about it briefly. Do you remember I said if you have a 401k, you should probably start by putting money in your 401k up to the company match. Then if you have money left over, you may want to fund a Roth IRA first to the max eventually, and then go back several years later perhaps to the 401k and then max that out. It's good to have a Roth IRA in combination with your 401k. And some of you may know, of course, you can have a Roth 401k as well. So make sure you decide what you want to do. You might want to have a pre-tax 401k and partly a 401k that is a Roth. You can do a blended approach. My blended approach just happened to be because a Roth 401k was not around until 2008, I think it was. So I had no option but to contribute to a pre-tax bucket in my 401k. But you have a choice, maybe, if you have a 401k. So you would want to leverage that opportunity first, but you can have a Roth IRA, individual Roth IRA, and your Roth 401k as well. Some people think you can have one or the other, but no, you can have both. So let's say you decide to do just to 6% or whatever your company matches in your 401k. Then you decide to open up a Roth IRA. Maybe you completed your budget and you have $3,000 left over above and beyond fun and other, and you're like, great, I need to put this in a line item somewhere in my budget. So a Roth IRA is an investment, not just savings. It can double as a savings account though, because you can still take the money out as far as the money that you put in. You can't touch the earnings until 59.5, I believe it is. So it's a vehicle that encourages people to save, and it's also funded, obviously, with money that you already paid taxes on. So while you're younger and you're not making as much money, you're in a lower tax bracket, so you're paying the taxes now, and then you put that in the account, and it grows and grows and grows. And then the growth on that as well is not taxed. So it's a really good deal. And then, as you guys know, because I'm retiring at age 58, my first 15 years or so after I analyze how much of my short-term reserves I'm going to use. Remember, I'm using short-term reserves from my savings account cash for 2025. For 2026, I don't know yet. It depends on what happens in 2025 with the market. If the market does really well, I'll probably take that off the top and not touch the cash. And where am I going to go to pull from? The Roth IRA. The Roth IRA is the account that I'm going to live on for probably 10 or 15 years and let the other money grow, as I've talked about, as you guys know. So you also then have virtually no taxes in retirement. I think they call that the golden decade. I read a book, or learned about, I didn't read the book, I should say. I learned about Wade Pfau. He's a professor. I can't remember at what university, but he's really smart with money. And I think he has a book called The Golden Decade, where early retirees can virtually use that account and not have much tax at all for a long time. Now, you guys know I'm going to have some taxes because I'm going to have to sell shares from my taxable account to qualify as income for the healthcare premiums. But that's besides the point. So you may want to consider, all of you, if you do not have a Roth IRA, you can go to Vanguard. You can go to T. Rowe Price. I think they're still around. Yeah. You can go to, I say that because my first Roth IRA in 2006 was with T. Rowe Price, and then I moved it to Vanguard. You can go to Fidelity and open up a Roth IRA, or you could go to Charles Schwab and other companies as well. It's not so much the company that you have to decide on. What you have to decide on is what type of investments do you want in the Roth IRA, because once you start putting money into that account, the Roth is just the vehicle in which it lives in. But then you choose what you want to invest in, whether it be 100% stocks in a mutual fund and or a blended approach with maybe a bond fund and a stock fund as well. So you can get some help from your 401k custodian people and others that can help you decide, what to put it into. You might as well do something that is like a total stock market. That's what I do. Where you're investing in the total market, and it is less risky than if you did individual stocks. So, number 2, if you do not have a Roth IRA, I would highly encourage you to get one in 2025. Number 3, for new ideas in the new year to do better with money, is you may want to leverage savings accounts still in 2025 while rates are relatively high. And I'm going to say relatively because, you know what, they're definitely going down, right? I don't know where they're going to go in 2025 as far as things like interest rates you get on savings accounts, interest rates you get on CDs, and interest rates you get on other types of things as well. So one thing I did actually at the end of 2024, which I think I told you about, is that I did open up a CD, a 3-year CD, with my credit union at like 5%, was it 4.5, somewhere in there, because I wanted to capture those higher rates for a longer horizon, for 3 years, because we're going into an environment where rates are going down. Now, you would only want to lock money into a CD if you knew you obviously did not need that money for whatever the term of the CD is. So make sure you keep cash on the side in your emergency fund in something safe like a online savings account. You can go to Ally Bank or other places. Go to bankrate.com. They give really good. It gives you a good idea of what banks and credit unions offer the best rates on things like CDs, money markets, online accounts. Shop around. But as you're building your emergency fund, if you are, you would be putting that most likely in an online savings account or a money market perhaps, until it gets to a certain dollar amount that you feel comfortable with. But then if you start to have more cash, that's when you could potentially lock it into a CD. Maybe you're saving for a home. You might have lots of goals going on. Maybe you're saving for other things. And if you don't need the money for quite some time, it may be a good idea to lock it into CDs at this particular point, because, as you know, rates will probably continue to go down a little bit. So just make sure again that it's what we're really doing. Obviously, as you're building your wealth, as I've said before, you're looking at the year, for example, 2025, and you're saying at the end of you're looking at your spreadsheet first, right? And you're visualizing the entire year. Then you take some time and you figure out, okay, I've got my expenses going on. That should work out really good. I have this $3,000 bucket of cash. Should it go into a savings account? Should maybe $1,500 of it go into a CD? It all depends on the need of that money. Nobody can tell you, not even me. You'd have to sit down with yourself and figure out what your goals are for the future, the immediate future, and maybe 3 to 5 years out. The money you put into your 401k, into a Roth IRA, that's for money that you'll need potentially 10 years into the future, 20 years, maybe 30 years into the future. So that can be more long-term based. Then you've got your short-term reserves, as I like to call it, which is again your money markets, your online savings account, your CDs, and maybe some other vehicles as well. So once you get the budget, you figure out where does that money best live in the 12 months that you have in 2025. And that is how you're going to do really great with money. And 3 ideas that I wanted to share with you today, going into